Now I'm on. Welcome. Now I can say good morning.
Good morning, Robert.
Those of you who haven't been here before, we do stream this on Facebook, so that's what that is all about. But anyway, the ideas that we are sharing are so phenomenal, they're almost unbelievable. And I haven't said this too often before, but one of the things that has happened, 2,000 years ago, Jesus was sharing ideas on how to interact as a human being in this world. And he said you must be born again, all that kind of stuff, but those were idioms that took place in the Aramaic language at that time. So being born again really was a way of saying you got to change your thinking from the physical world into a spiritual idea. He used the phrases "in my name," and that really meant just do it the way I told you to do it, because he was constantly training his apostles, and that meant just don't get over here in the world, stay here in the spiritual environment. And so the whole idea today is Jesus was trying to share with his followers and with us today's quantum physics. Everybody there? Yeah. And quantum physics has now said that what we think about, we create. And they know when we as human beings observe an atom or things operating, we change the outcome of events. Now, that's scientific, and everybody says science and religion don't get together, but now they are. So how do we translate that into how do we act in today's world? So the major thing to understand is physicists tell us everything is energy. There isn't anything other than energy at different rates of vibration. In other words, this stand is a whole bunch of atoms at a high rate of vibration that have gotten together for that purpose. And my body is a whole bunch of atoms that are vibrating together, healing right now. and again, the way these atoms are coalesced together is through other energies. They're called subtle energies. And the world knows it. In other words, the Heart Math Institute in California has measured the energy around each individual goes out to about 8 feet. And in that process, they say it goes further, but they can't measure it because they don't have instruments that can measure subtle energies. So you understand the idea is we are receivers and transmitters of energy. Okay, now I'm going to say that again. We are receivers and transmitters of energy. And in that process, we create our world. So we are creators of our own personal world and the way the world interacts with us. So our beliefs and our structures that we were born with and transmitted with, because we are human beings, it comes down, in the Bible it says to 6th and 7th generation, but that's okay. But the idea behind this is you are an energy field creating your world. And Jesus said, he was asked, where's the kingdom of heaven? And he said, the kingdom of heaven is within. So everything we could possibly be wanting, we already have at the consciousness level. And we are really like the prodigal son. And the prodigal son left. He took everything and said, nope, I want my inheritance. And he took all his money or whatever he had and went and had his ball, had fun. And then he woke up, and he was literally starving in a field, eating what the pigs were eating. And he said, I have a father who I know if I go back, and just all I want to do is work for him. But the father took him back and did all kinds of good things for him, okay? Now, that's a metaphor for we have been lost in the physical world. We've been programmed to believe certain things over a long period of time. All those beliefs are acting out in our lives, and we don't like it. We blame others. However, we can return to the Father, and that's what we're about here, and that's what this conversation is about. And sometimes, that's why when I was working on today's message, all kinds of interesting things kept coming in because it's such a phenomenal story. And it's so unbelievable who we really are. And 2,000 years ago, Jesus was trying to share that with us. And the problem is, he said, these things I do, you shall do even greater things. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to believe Jesus. Yes?
Yes.
So if you take a look at that, what has happened is, over the years, now this is my hypothesis, but over the years, people have said there's no way that I am an expression of God. I can't be. That's actually blasphemy. Okay? And we have said that over and over again. So somehow we have to deify Jesus and diminish us. And Jesus said, no, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and these things I do, you shall do, and even greater things. And that's a message that's difficult to take in and understand that everything in my life, good and bad, that's happened to me, I have created through my ability to think, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, my life into existence. Now, it's a very, very interesting idea, and it's a controversial idea. It's an idea that's been hanging around in the self-development area for quite a while. In other words, if I say something often enough, it's going to happen. But over here, it's a spiritual idea. So we're bringing in the spiritual idea, and I like to look at us as a community that is like the prodigal son that is slowly going back to the Father. Now, it takes time to do that. And it takes effort to do that. And when I say effort, it's not bad effort, it's just changing the style and what you do. In other words, I am responsible for everything in my life. Those of you here know that I had a heart attack first week in January. Okay, now, did somebody do that to me? No, you got to be honest about looking at my life, and the facts are the facts. So somehow in my life there was generated whatever that occurred, a heart attack. Now, am I coming back? Yes. For those of you that want to know, yes, I'm doing very well. As a matter of fact, I'm doing cardiac rehab and all kinds of things. However, I have to look at my life and say, okay, here is what I have created. Okay? Now, in my article, I say, life becomes what you think about. So the Pollyanna, or the positive-minded person, see, if I think that I'm a child of God and I act that way, think about that term, child of God, because you've been told many times you're a child of God. And if you really are a child of God, what does that mean? That means you inherit everything that God is. And that message keeps going over and over and over again. So if I'm a child of God, then things I don't like, who do I have to come back to shift and make that change? And how come some people earn millions of dollars and others can't get by on, they get $1 a week or whatever it is? So it's a consciousness idea. The energy, see, what I think about, I create. The kingdom of heaven is within. I want to go into the Bible and share another story with you. Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. I spent a lot of time in the Sermon on the Mount. And that's in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And the one I want to talk about today can be a little bit controversial, but I want to share it with you. And it's interesting to me. I was going back and forth, do I really want to dig into this? And then this morning I got it, yes, you're going to dig into it. Okay. So the passage I want to share with you is Matthew 6. I'm going to start on verse 19. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures buried in the ground, a place where rot and moth destroy and where thieves break through and steal. Now the ground in the world is the conditioned self. Remember in Genesis, at the last chapter, last verse in Genesis 1, it said that God created man and saw everything, he saw everything was good, period. So if everything's in good, what are you? You're good, which means perfection, joy, everything you need is handled. You live in the Garden of Eden where everything is taken care of. So what happened? We were given free choice to think our own way, and slowly over generations, we came into what I call negative thinking. And you started thinking, well, I'm only human. Anybody ever heard that before? Mm-hmm. Don't get your hopes up, boy. Don't expect too much. Right? What else? Be careful that happens because you... But I like this one. Be careful. Well, what can happen if I'm a child of God? So we have been so conditioned to the world's beliefs, and we have also conditioned ourselves to them, that when anything happens, we have to blame something other than ourselves. Psychologists call it projection. In other words, if I'm dealing with something I don't like, I have to project it on you because you caused it for me. Interesting idea, okay? And it's a really fascinating idea. So the idea behind it is if I'm going to be a true Christian or a follower in the light of Christ, then I have to adapt those beliefs into myself. So I want to go on further. It says, next verse, for where your treasure is, there's your heart also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If therefore your eye be bright, your whole body is also lighted. Now, remember the revealing word, which is the dictionary at the time. Again, we go back to what Jesus was saying, and people take the translation that occurred back in the 1500s. They used actual language, English, because there a lot of times there wasn't a corollary from the Aramaic end. So we have to look at it from a spiritual sense. And in the revealing word, which is the dictionary that Charles Fillmore put together, the eye, the inner eye, is the spiritual vision, intuitive seeing with the eye of truth. So when the eye sees truth, or truth is you're God, you're an expression of God, and when you see only the good that you are and the good that's possible, that's what you create, right there. And that's the idea behind it, and that's the idea that quantum physics is now supporting. Okay? Let me go on. And it's like, this is such an amazing idea. You mean I have this ability? Yes, you do. But you've been told over and over and over again. I was told to put your hopes up, boy, don't expect too much. You're going to have to work hard all your life. One of the things you're going to have to do is learn to overcome struggle. Anybody like that one? Okay? And those are all ideas that have been implanted in us, and our culture and our society has perpetuated it. And what happens is, if we're not doing what we see other people doing, we have to blame the other people rather than look at ourselves. And that's a tough message when I say I'm responsible. Now, here's one of the issues. We talk about projection. You see, are you ready for this? See, when I say I want to live a happy life, or when I say I'm on a spiritual path, or when I make any claim, everything that's keeping me from getting there has to come up in my life. Okay, so if I'm working on anger and I want to give up anger, what has to happen? If I haven't given up anger, I get into my life people that make me angry. Is that subtle or not?
Yeah.
Okay, you see, and if I'm prejudiced in any way, if I have issues with anybody of any class or any gender or any culture or any race, and I have those problems, what has to be in my face all the time? It keeps coming in. Okay, that's why we have the political situations we're dealing with. Because we haven't forgiven ourselves and we're not operating from love. See, love is the language of God. So if we want things to correct, then we work with love. So the idea is, when I have somebody in my life that annoys me, that person is there as God's gift, showing us, hey, here's an energy that you need to work with. Now, how do we work with that energy? Forgive it and love it. See, in other words, wherever you are on the political spectrum, if Mr. Trump bothers you, then would you agree you have to love him and forgive him? Or if Mrs. Pelosi or anybody bothers you, then there's an issue that you need to deal with and forgive yourself for. Because the kingdom of heaven is within, and everything we do is an expression of spirit. And we live in a perfect world, we're told. That's the Bible promises. So how do we get there? And the Bible does tell us to become perfect, which we blow off because there's no way to do that. But if you stop and think about it, if I'm living in love and expressing God, how's my life start working? Now, I'll go on, we need to read a little bit more here, okay? So it says, and understand, this is Jesus talking, and the Sermon on the Mount's famous because it outlines the Christian beliefs that we address. So it goes on, so if your eye's diseased, your whole body will be dark. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how much greater will your darkness be? So when we see through our spiritual eye good things happen. And when we see through our spiritual eye dark things, or things, the problems of the world, what do we experience more of? Okay, now, that whole idea, I really believe we're going through a new birth. If those of you that are familiar with the chaos theory says anytime something needs to be corrected, things have to go into chaos to go to a higher level of being. In other words, you can't change things with the old way of thinking. It requires new thinking. And to go through chaos, we have to go through chaos to get to that higher level of being. Now those aren't my words. Those are words of, the scientists, etc. Okay? So it goes on. He says, but no man can serve two masters. Now here's the idea. You can only think this way or that way. Hello? That's all you can do. In other words, I think on this side or I think on that side. And whatever you think about, you create. So when something happens in my life now, there's no way to go back and figure out what I was thinking. In other words, if I go back and look at what created my heart attack, anybody agree? It could be a myriad of things, and my conscious self is going to hide it from me anyway. So the only thing to do is go back and focus on God, because that's all there is. So it isn't generally trying to reverse each thought. It's living in the consciousness that I am the expression of God. So it's creating a God consciousness and knowing that everything in my life is slowly unfolding in perfect ways. Okay? It goes on and says, okay, no man can serve two masters, for this is the reason I say to you, do not worry for your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor for your body, what you will wear, etc., etc., etc. And the body has that clothing. In other words, everything is taken care of us when we're in the consciousness of who we really are. No matter who we are, that's our possibility. Now, how come some people live a charmed life and other people don't? Now, we try to blame things on it, okay? But maybe it's just their consciousness of spirit. Maybe it's just their consciousness of good. Okay, maybe it isn't us. Maybe it is the consciousness that we're dealing with. Okay? So that's what I wanted to share. The idea behind that is not easy to take in, because the average consciousness wants to blame somebody else for what happens to me. Okay? Now, it takes time. When I say consciousness, I mean literally creating new neuron structures in the brain. And new neuron structures, in other words, is a new way of thinking. So if I'm going to create a new way of thinking, it takes time to create that new consciousness. And we know today that the brain is pliable. It can be retrained. And I've shared with you before RAD, which is radical attachment disorder, that babies have if they're not cuddled and loved in their infancy. And when they reach 2 or 3 or 4, they do not know how to connect. They don't understand love on the human level. In the Russian orphanages, they weren't cuddled. So they started having all kinds of behavior problems when these kids grew up because they hadn't learned love. Their brains literally did not have the connection. So we as human beings are growing up without a connection to God. We don't know how to do it because we haven't been trained to do it. Okay, and we still look at all the division out here. We still look at all the gender biases and the racial biases. And it's wrong. We say that, but how do we get back? And in other words, I can't do it on the physical level. I have to go inside on the spiritual level and do it spiritual work, which means redoing the brain through prayer, meditation, connection with others, open conversations, and a sincere desire to be Spirit-led. Okay, it takes time. As you know, we have classes and all kinds of things. Frankly, I've been working in Patanjali this week. Those of you who don't know who Patanjali is, he was a teacher, a spiritual teacher 3,000, 4,000 years ago that espoused pretty much what Jesus was talking about. Those of you that have ever studied the background of Jesus know that he went into Nepal and some of the other areas and studied the ancient Asian arts. And there's all kinds of records in places that he was there. And Joel Goldsmith, who's the one we studied on Thursdays at 10 o'clock, he had some very interesting things to say that are right out of those ideas. And it's right in the middle of what we're talking about today. Joel Goldsmith, by the way, was a practitioner that is known for healing. Whenever somebody contacted him, they automatically became healed. Whatever they were working on dissolved. And his whole idea was connection with spirit. And the wrong book, thank you. I'm really off in this, I am. It's like sometimes I feel inadequate because it's such a huge story and I want people to get it. In other words, the kingdom of heaven is within. And I've heard all kinds of stories. See, I grew up in fundamentalist background, so I'm familiar with all those stories. But the truth is, you're a child of God. And the minute you say that, my tingles go down my spine because that's who you are. And we have so limited ourselves. And this is Joel Goldsmith from the other book. And he says, we are all joint heirs with Christ. Do you remember that conversation? It says we are joint heirs with Christ in God. Therefore, we all draw upon the resources of our own infinite consciousness. In other words, you are the middle of the universe right now. You are God in expression, or whatever we call that energy of God. Then it goes on and says, and we need not labor, we need not strive or struggle for that which is already divinely ours. So automatically within you is your divine plan. Everything you came here to do is within your consciousness, deeply buried, and it's that idea that comes to you, but you are the Christ in expression. Then he goes on and says, all that anyone possesses at any time, even of what seems to be of human value, is the unfoldment of their own state of consciousness, their own beliefs, their own consciousness of who they really are. And it takes time to believe that because we've been so covered up with everything trying to denigrate us and push us down. But I'm telling you, you need to be raised up because you are the Christ. I could go on and preach some more. And it's really it's like my heart wants me to get it, okay? Because we're all on this journey together. And that's why we hang out together, by the way. You know that? Because the world out there is telling me, you're not good enough. I might be too old now. I just came a heart attack, so I have to be careful. Whatever stories go through our heads, those are the stories that the ego is using to hold us back. So all I want to share with you is you are loved. You are appreciated. You are the salt of the earth. These are all things your scripture tells you. And I'm going to ask us, each one of us, to accept that and start on that journey back to the Father, which is called awakening or awareness, okay, or nirvana, as the Buddhists talk about. But it's all the same place, which is returning to who you really are in consciousness. And I see you complete and whole. That building is housing us down the street there. We did have a ceremony on Friday, which worked out very well. And that was Larry Henson is the one that put that together. And I really saw it. So thank you for being with us this morning. I appreciate it. There's so much more to talk about. That one idea. You are the Christ. because the word, see, everybody thinks his name was Jesus Christ. His name was Jesus the Christ. And the word Christ didn't come until the Greek got involved. Christ is the word Christos, which means light in Greek. But they didn't speak Greek, they spoke Aramaic. So 324 AD is when the Bible was put together, if you will, and that's when the Christ word started coming out. But Christ is simply that connection that you have with God directly. And there's no intermediaries, there's nobody out there to tell you what to do. Your heart knows. So I love you. My heart is telling you you are the Christ. So thank you. Bye.